Well, now the sun was a-sinking slow over Santa Fe, leaving behind a dusty, yallerish glow that made the whole town look like it was painted on some old wore-out canvas, flickering uneasy-like in the evening breeze. Don Esteban, he come hurrying down the main street, with that Bedillos feller's boots crunching along behind him, still all dizzy-headed from the day's queer stroke of luck. "Mas prisa, hombre," Don Esteban mutters, swinging his cane like some highfalutin infantry captain. "Them women could settle the fate of all Mexico, I reckon." Bedillos, he was puffing and blowing hard, whether from being plumb tuckered out or all het up with excitement, or maybe a mite of both, who could say. They'd done crossed the plaza already, slipping past them merchants hollering their goods and a passel of soldiers who give Bedillos the hairy eyeball like he was something the cat drug in. Them soldiers was loafing in the square, waiting to snag a cheap cup of cold atole. Ain't nobody seed two yaller-haired women riding military hosses. But Don Esteban, he weren't one to give up without a fight. He paced through that whole market till, just when they was fixin' to lose all hope, they spied him over by a public fountain. Thar them Mexican hosses was drinkin', nostrils flarin' wide, and the two women was staring at each other, all flummoxed, like the world had spun too fast round 'em. Elizabeth, she gripped them reins tight, her shoulders stiff as a board fence, whilst Annalise watched the folks passin' by with a shaky kind of wonder, plumb wore out, but sharp-eyed all the same. When Bedillos laid eyes on 'em, he let out a whoop like he'd struck a poke of pesos buried in the desert sand. "Señoras! Señoras!" he hollers, running at 'em with arms flung wide like a hound dog begging for a pat. The gals jumped, scared half to death. Don Esteban, cool as a cucumber and slick as grease, he tips his hat real polite. "Ladies, I'm Don Esteban de la Cruz. Santa Fe owes y'all its peace. We got need of your help." Elizabeth, she sizes him up with her eyes, mighty cautious-like. She'd come from a tidy world, and Santa Fe, with its dust and its waverin' soldiers, didn't spark no trust in her heart. That sly old merchant, he fixed up a clean, cheap inn right quick, so both women could get a bed and a hot victuals. He give 'em time to settle down and take a steamin' bath. All on his dime, mind you. Next day, he come back with Bedillos to pick up the yarn. "What sort of help you need, sir?" Elizabeth asks, with a thick but clear twang in her talk. A little quiver snuck into her voice, and her eyes showed she was powerful suspicious. She just didn't trust folks no more. Don Esteban sets down at the table, smoothing his mustache with his right hand. "Señora, I want to know everything that happened at Rancho El Cuervo. Every last bit." At the name of Rancho El Cuervo, Annalise shuts her eyes for a spell. A shadow crosses her face, and a tear slips out the corner. Bedillos squirms guilty-like, trying to fade into the woodwork. Elizabeth draws a deep breath, like a body bracing to poke an old sore. "It was hell," she whispers. Then she commences to tell. About the night when Ramos's cavalry rode into the canyon, too cocky by half. About how them Indians come slipping out, quiet as ghosts, like they growed right out of them red rocks. Then the first arrows flying, and the hullabaloo. She spun the tale of the last day at Don Laureano's hacienda, and how Ramos and Joaquin give up. About that man with the soft eyes, a healer feller, Delay, who saved their hides. Don Esteban listened, holding his breath. For the first time in his born days, he weren't jawing or ciphering. Bedillos, though, his eyes bugged out at every twist, hoping the story wouldn't swing round to where he'd skedaddled and lost his nerve. Annalise wraps up her say in a low voice. "Them Indians, they ain't the monsters y'all reckon 'em to be." After a long spell of quiet, Don Esteban give a nod. I know it. That's just why we need you. With what you got in your head, we can talk peace. Right here in Santa Fe, your words and them names you carry is worth a heap. Together, we can stitch up this old wound, once and for all. Elizabeth eyed him sharp-like, half mistrustful and half hoping. If it helps, and if I got your word as a gentleman that no more folks'll die, then we'll spill everything. Barrios nigh to bust out crying. He was fixing to kiss both their hands. Don Esteban jabbed him in the ribs with an elbow. That's enough, Sergeant. We still got a passel of work ahead. Then he turned back to Elizabeth. Ma'am, that's all we want, too. That nobody else gets killed. I give you my word. I'm the most respectable merchant in this here state. Everybody knows ain't nobody round these parts honors a deal more'n I do. And so, the women recollected the names that Ramos had spoke afore he passed. The brave Barranquito and his boys, Santana and Cadete, Geronimo, the one what doled out justice, the Injun with sleeves red as blood, Pasago Cabazon, and Cigarito, the feller what led 'em out of the desert. Don Esteban listened with a keenness that went beyond politicking. It was the interest of a man who'd finally found the key to a door shut tight for centuries. Each name them gals spoke seemed to light up a trail for him through the tangled maze of the bargaining to come. Excellent, he muttered, his eyes squinting like a chess player spying 3 moves ahead. These names, just these, can build peace or fetch the whole shebang tumbling down. Barrios, who'd been standing there with his mouth hanging open till then, drawed in a big breath. Well, the governor's got to hear this, he said in a tone that aimed for solemn, but come out more like the hope of a man feeling a whooping lifted off his back. Don Esteban gave him a light tap on the shoulder. The governor'll hear, but not just from you, Sergeant. This time we'll go together. And together we'll figure out exactly what we tell him, and how. Elizabeth looked up, scared like. You aim to use their names for politics? Don Esteban smiled with the careful softness of a man used to turning other folks' bad luck into chances. Not for politics, ma'am. For the future. For peace. So what you been through don't happen no more. And, he added, low and near confessional, so Santa Fe ain't a town of mourning no longer. Behind all this fancy talking, Barrios, with his old cloak and his belly sagging more'n ever, turned important again for a spell. He'd been the first to see them German women had something to say. He was proud. His eyes shined. With all the pieces laid out on the table, Don Esteban set to fixing a quiet mission, without soldiers, without drums, without badges. A plain folks mission. One that wouldn't look like a poke in the eye nor like giving in. On his Sabino wood table, he spread out the gifts for the Apaches. Horses, clean flintlock rifles, blankets, shiny knives, a sack of salt, a few bottles of mezcal, and 2 little mirrors fetched from Veracruz. It weren't tribute nor trading, but the sort of present that twixt warring nations meant we come with open arms. But for them gifts to get to the right folks, a trusty man was needed.